Hello, everyone. And Lisa, thank you so much. And I just want to first and foremost thank Lisa both for that very kind introduction and for all that the Cultural Alliance does for the community of both arts organizations in our region and also all of us who live here. We are very, very lucky to have Lisa and the Cultural Alliance advocating for us and providing a network of rich opportunities and things like today's conversation. So before I turn things over to the candidates and to begin with questions, I'll just say, in thinking about today's conversation and about the role of culture in our region, I was thinking both about the Aldrich, which, as Lisa said, is one of the oldest contemporary art museums in the country, but that we are also a state that is home to the oldest art museum in the country, in the Wadsworth, that we think a lot about. And this is going to be my first question about Connecticut as a region, Connecticut as a state between two large metropolitan areas, but in reality, Connecticut is an incredibly rich and vibrant cultural community all its own. And I have the great pleasure of not just being a part of that as an administrator, but as a resident, and how lucky all of us are to be in a place with so many rich and varied opportunities. The cultural organizations and the cultural community in Ridgefield just participated in a long and incredibly, I would say, empowering kind of activity to advocate for the cultural community as a economic engine of the town of Ridgefield. And that work was both clarifying and I think really educational for many people in the town. I think we all know in the cultural sector that we not only are really important economic engines for our communities, driving people. We know at the Aldrich, for example, that a huge portion of our visitors come from outside of Ridgefield and yet come to the community and spend their time and spend their money. We also know, as I learned from a child in my daughter's first grade class last year, that sometimes they come to the Aldrich and then decide to buy a house and move here. But it's not just, we are all doing this in the state. And beyond that, the cultural community makes living here such it's not just about dollars, it's also about the kind of richness of our experience. And I think that that's something really important and critical to the work that we all do here and that we get to take advantage of as residents. So with that, I will start by asking, as Lisa said, each candidate the same series of questions, and I'm going to start kind of in order of how everyone appears on my strange Zoom screen. So with that, I'm going to start with Julie. So kind of following up on what I just said, sandwiched between Boston and New York, Connecticut is often dismissed as a pass-through state when it comes to tourism. Yet our state has many world-class arts institutions and a rich cultural landscape. Why do you think arts and culture are important in Connecticut? And what is unique about the state's arts and culture?
Thank you, Cybele, and thank you, Lisa, also for hosting this forum. I really appreciate it. I have been a major advocate for the arts, including in my own home. I have a lot of artwork and family members who are artists. And so it is, I think, something that is very important to having a rich and vibrant community. And I do appreciate the arts that we have nearby in Ridgefield and have spent hours in your museum. But I feel like we need more of it. And we need to make sure that folks are aware of how much it brings to a community. So I am very pleased that in the last biennium budget, we did allocate money for the arts and tourism and connected those factors together, that this is good for the economy as well as, good for the soul. And so I think we've done a lot, but we can do more. I'd like to see in my district, the 24th, which will now be Danbury, New Fairfield, and now Ridgefield, I'd like to see us expand our investments in the arts. The Cultural Alliance has done a tremendous amount to help us bring art into the Danbury community. And I think that's been very important, but I know it's been with some challenges. The event today at the Danbury Fair Mall is a great example of how we can innovate, how we can make sure that we're bringing art to the people where the people are, whether it's the downtown murals that we have, or whether it's using the mall now as an exhibit, basically for our artistic community. I think that we need to do more, though, in terms of making sure that we're properly investing, and that goes within the community, but it also means making sure that these resources exist in our schools, that we're not seeing art on the chopping block when there are tight budgets, because art really enriches life. And so I'm very happy to be part of this forum and look forward to working with you in the future.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question, which you kind of started speaking to already. So, you know, despite kind of what we know about culture and its economic impact, the arts, as you said, have been historically on the chopping block. So what would you do to help keep arts and creativity funded in our state at a level that recognizes their importance as an economic driver?
I think one of the advantages of having served now for 4 years, I see how things work in the legislature. And what we really depend upon is our advocates, those in the community that specialize, that have a focus on the issue that we're trying to address. And so for me, I would turn to all of you as advocates to tell me the best way to invest our resources in the budget. But I certainly would be an advocate for increasing funds toward the arts and tourism. I think it's something that is, you know, incredibly important. So we did pretty well in the last budget. I know that there was a grant for the Cultural Alliance that I think was significant. I saw monies being invested in Sherman, the JCC, which does tremendous programming for the whole community. So, you know, small grants and large grants, I think, are a great way to get the resources of the state down to the community level.
Thank you. So Rachel, you are up next. And I'm going to ask all of you the same questions as I move through them, but so I won't repeat the kind of preamble, but just why do you think arts and culture are important in Connecticut, and what is unique about our state's arts and culture?
I think the arts and culture in Connecticut are comparable to those that we see right next door in New York. So quality, certainly, and more accessible for families in particular. I have 2 young children, and my family and I are all about the arts. We are longtime members of the Danbury Music Center. And it brings such, you know, quality of life for everyone in Connecticut, not just, you know, families with kids. But also, you know, for our kids and for everyone else, our social emotional needs, as we saw, you know, during the pandemic, we did a lot of dancing and arts and crafts and painting, and just to keep our spirits up and keep our minds busy. Being on the Board of Education in Danbury, you know, I see how it impacts school climate. What else can I say? I believe, and what can I do at the state level? I think, you know, I learned so much just by completing the survey and perusing through your website on the statistics of, you know, return on investment for our state, which is quite impressive, and just keeping myself and my colleagues apprised of those, to really understand the value back when we invest in the arts.
Yeah, you've elegantly segued into the next question there. So
oh, sorry.
No, you're making my job very easy for me. Thank you. Amy, I see you're next here on my screen. What would you say, why do you think that the arts and culture are important in the state, and what is unique about what Connecticut has to offer?
Well, you and I had a nice opportunity to talk about it this summer a little
Yeah.
bit. And, when I moved to Ridgefield, I was born in New York City and I had lived 10 years in Boston. And when someone said to me, "What are you going to do when you move to a suburb? How are you going to survive?" And so I started doing a really quick search about what was available. And so many of the things that appealed to me, theaters, playhouse, live music, restaurants, museums, were right in this one single community. So I have to admit, it was a long time before I explored anywhere outside of Ridgefield because I didn't really have to because of what we had. Now that I have been in this seat for 2 years, I have seen so much more of what is available and right here at our fingertips, literally often here in Connecticut, and it makes sense that in a town like Ridgefield specifically, like the arts just brought $37 million into our community this in 1 year. One single year, that was what it was able to produce. So now we've got people moving into our community from New York. We've got people coming right over the border, and they're going to start moving out just as I did. Maybe they won't wait the 17 years that I did to explore the rest of Connecticut. But to be able to see all that is available outside of our beautiful little cultural bubble it's been really mind-opening for me, and I see that it has been for so many other people within my own community. We talked so much about in the General Assembly's Arts, Culture, and Tourism Caucus. We've talked about what our priorities would be collectively and what we all saw based on what we experienced in our own communities. And so much of that, I mean, some of that Senator Kushner has already talked about and referenced a little bit, but and as did Lisa in the very beginning, where equitable funding for all of these things is a critical piece. So when I look at something like the Ridgefield Playhouse, which expanded with some of the money that we as a delegation were able to bring in to contribute to that, they've expanded in a way that will open up their programming to students outside of Ridgefield. And that was part of the appeal in even being able to acquire that bonding. When we appeal to the governor for that kind of thing, when they apply and we advocate for it, part of it is, will it reach more than just your community? And so to see that so many people come from outside of Ridgefield into our space, and that we then, or you guys as the advocates for the arts throughout the state, can then refer those who come to you to the other places in the state, it's just a continuum of art and culture and what it does for developing a much more sustainable economic brand for Connecticut in terms of culture and arts is the possibilities are endless.
What do you think, kind of to ask the second question a little bit differently, what do you think can be done to kind of expand understanding among elected officials about the economic impact of the arts?
Well, things like this, for sure, talking about it like this. I also think inviting one another. So the reason that I know about what else is going on throughout the state is because of the connections that I have made in the House of Representatives with folks who are all over this state, and inviting one another to see what we have to offer in each of our communities and each of our regions. That is an opportunity that, you know, I've got friends all over this state now that I didn't have before. So to be able to invite them to come and see what you guys are currently showing at the Aldrich or Keeler Tavern, or to come see Pat Benatar play at the Playhouse or whatever is going on, to be able to do all of that with one another it's a very unique experience for us as legislators. But another way that we can do that is to just keep talking about it, keep advocating for it, and also to encourage, also to Senator Kushner's point, encourage you all as advocates to reach out to us. You know, we have so many things that we're responsible for in a session. It is often compared to drinking from a fire hose. We've got things we've got to worry about that will often have absolutely nothing to do with arts and culture. So to know that we have basically, you've got the the phone number to our emergency red phone to be able to reach out to us when you see something that you need from us is critical. And so for us to make ourselves available to you in that manner, I think is one of the best ways that we can continue to partner with the organizations, with the nonprofits, and with those of you who want to continue to bring art to our state.
Thank you. Next, I hope I'm not missing anyone, but I think next on my screen is Farley. Hello. So I will start with the same question. Why do you think arts and culture are important in Connecticut, and what is unique about our offerings here?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you all today. You know, growing up in Danbury, arts and cultures was part of the upbringing, right? Understanding the different cultures that we do have and understanding the value of art in our community, but also appreciating the differences that there exist as well. Having served on the Board of Education, having gone through Danbury Public Schools, I understand and value what significance arts has in our curriculum, in our society, and then within our community as well. Because, you know, when you go through budgets through the Board of Education that are tenuous and you're trying to you know, shoestring budgets, I should say, and when folks are putting arts on the chopping block, you have to understand that arts creates a better community, right? It brings people together. We had that conversation with multiple people who attended the Business Supports the Arts breakfast this morning, which was a great opportunity to discuss the importance of arts with local artists and people who are promoting arts in our region. I think specifically to Connecticut, we have so much to offer. Senator Kushner, Representative Berger mentioned it as well. These are things that make Connecticut great, right? But specific to Danbury, which I would be representing as state rep for the 109th district, we have tremendous amounts of arts and cultures that are so different, right? And are so valuable to creating the thread that runs between all of these communities here within our city. Someone like Lisa, who's done tremendous work in trying to bring those communities together, making us a better city. Those are the kinds of people that we need to listen to folks that understand how a community is stronger. And by funding arts the way that they should be funded is the way that we can do that. There's so much there, so much potential. Personally speaking, as a father of a 9-year-old little girl who is obsessed with her coloring pad and crayons and you know, wants to be an illustrator when she grows up. That's the new thing at the moment. I see the value of how it better educates our children and our population. So certainly be an advocate for the arts. I value it, and I look forward to being an advocate on the state level.
To the kind of second part of the question, which you of course already addressed a little bit,
Sure.
What do you imagine that you could do to advocate, or how would you imagine being effective in advocating for financial support for this sector at the state level?
Well, the way I look at it is we have to be understanding of what it truly means, right? And I think the other state reps and state senator who are here will agree with me in saying that, and the candidates, that we're not all 100% versed in every single issue, right? So we have to understand the impact that every issue has. And again, speaking to those stakeholders, the folks who understand the subject much better than we do, perhaps, will make us better advocates, but then also better salespeople, let's put it that way, right? To be able to sell why we would want to have more funding for the arts, or why there's a proposal that is better than others, how it could be an economic driver for our state, right? So I think bringing that awareness that we don't know everything, and then bringing those who do to the table, making sure that we understand the value and understand the purpose will make us better advocates on behalf of them.
Well, it speaks to the importance of something like today. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Next up is Eva.
Hello, everyone. Eva Bermuda Zimmerman, here as a candidate in the 30th district. That's Lower Fairfield County, Sherman, part of New Fairfield, part of Brookfield, and then going for most of Litchfield County, Warren, Kent, Goshen, Morris, all the way into North Canaan, and Torrington. I'd read them all, but they're 18 towns, so it is significant. The difference that I would start off with this district compared to other parts of the state of Connecticut is that there is no major manufacturer. We of course have manufacturing, but it's small businesses working in steel, working quarries, craft, landscaping. Our largest employer in the 30th district is Charlotte Hunger Hospital, and that's even that is not as large as other parts of the state where you have hundreds of employees. So I preface it with that because unlike other parts of the state, the livelihood day in, day out are two things here. The natural resources that are in Litchfield County, being the biggest landmass in the state of Connecticut, New Milford and other towns surrounding it, and the arts, the arts of multiple different versions of arts, be it visual, artisans, dance, also music. For many, many years, writers, musicians, and artists have flocked to Litchfield Hills because of the beauty, because of the space, because of the ruralness to it, to study, perform, practice, and perfect their art. And from that foundation, many years ago, has come a slew of other organizations, nonprofits that have been created supporting that group of artisans. Tackling the second question, then going back to the first, as a legislator, I would like to see affordable housing for artists that are coming here. That's something that we don't really have a conversation often, to try to replicate what's happened in some major cities in Connecticut successfully, but do that here in Litchfield Hills. There's affordable housing in Hartford, right next to the railroad and the busing system there, that's accessible to go to Amtrak and then go to New York City for those artists who are trying to connect to a larger demographic but want to live in Connecticut. Here in this corner, the Northwest corner, we do have access to New York City, and most of the artists that work here work in other regions as well as in Massachusetts, but trying to stay here and make sure that they can still live here is not sustainable. Through the housing market and inflation costs really happening and skyrocketing during COVID, you see the pricing going from $1,500 a month for a studio apartment, some skyrocketing to $3,000 for someone who is getting their start or at the tail end of their career where they want to settle down, but they still want to live in this community as an artist. Not really realistic. So I want to tackle that. Other projects I've had conversation with some artist groups that already have educational programs, busing children from inner cities or urban environments into Litchfield Hills to do camps, to do after-school programs, to really get involved with, short stints of dance, or maybe it's going to be visual artistry or crafts or drawing. The programs here, a lot of them have already been established, but unfortunately, they have been underfunded, and trying to dip into that wealth that's here in the community has its limitation. That's realistic. I remember when I was a board member of Heartbeat Ensemble, the professional theater in Hartford for many years. One of the mechanisms that we used to survive Heartbeat Ensemble was by purchasing a building and then making sure that we had space for the summer camps and the educational projects that we had. And we bus people from surrounding towns inward. It seems that a lot of the conversations when I have with Grumbling Theater, with Palabolis and other established artists here, they're trying to create other systems to make sure that they're fully sustainable. And most of these organizations have gone nonprofit. They're not just artists in the sense that it's one individual person. They've taken the track of collaborating, creating coalitions, creating conversation, so that they're sharing the art, but they're also doing it in a way that's a little bit more fiscally strategic, because it's so hard to expect that you're going to have a certain donation or a certain amount of money to survive. Another mechanism as a
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I apologize. I mentioned before you were able to join us, they were asking all of the candidates to keep their comments to 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I wrap up then?
No, yes, please. That was the purpose for my interruption, so forgive me.
Apologies. I had technical difficulties with the Eventbrite, but sorry about that. So to wrap up, just going back to the first part of the question of what we bring to our communities. Litchfield County has over 250 artists. Litchfield County, if you have not been here already, has a thriving, extremely thriving community in all types of art, visual, aesthetics, also dance and music, be it concerts. The list goes on, and there's been a lot of success with promoting, a lot of success with using social media and web pages to promote that, but making sure that that longevity exists for the next 10 to 100 years would be phenomenal if we have that legislative support. But and I do have a background in art. I went to an art high school, but yeah, 100% in support. Thank you.
Now, Lisa, I think that is all of the candidates on this call. Is there someone I'm missing? Kenneth, I'm sorry.
And there's Kenneth Gucker, and I believe Bob Godfrey has joined us as well.
Great. Well,
I'm often forgettable.
No, Lisa sent me a list yesterday, so I'm. Oh, and Phoebe,
I think it was on.
This is the chair of Zoom. I can see her in the chat.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Yes.
I thought I saw
Thank you.
her join. Yeah.
I had trouble with the Eventbrite link as well.
Well, thank you all for waving and getting my attention. I will start with Kenneth because he waved first. What, kind of to the first question that I've been asking all of the candidates, why do you think arts and culture are important here in Connecticut, and what do you think is unique about the community in the state?
So just a little quick background. I'm probably one of the few people here that actually has a degree in graphic design and went to college in the arts. I have a bachelor's degree, my bachelor in graphics. Also gave somebody such as myself with dyslexia and learning disabilities, art gave me an outlet that I would be able to reach out and communicate in a way I never would. Spelling and speech and all has always been difficult. But being able to express yourself in a different way of arts, even though my artwork wasn't great, it was expressionism, and it gets a lot of people out of their shell, but at the same time, it also gives you a voice that you didn't know you had. As far as supporting the arts, what we need to do, one of the first things actually to get people to enjoy the arts is to get them into Connecticut and stop here. And one of the things I was very proud to say was when Governor Lamont took over 4 years ago, I said to Ned, the first thing you need to do is open up the Danbury rest area, get rid of those porta potties, and let's start putting in the room back there that talks about all the great things we have in Connecticut. Because nothing says Connecticut's closed like having a closed rest area. So the first thing he did, came to Danbury, ripped that sign off the wall and says Connecticut's open for business, and it's been open ever since. And then since then, they opened up the tourism center that's there, which is directing people who come into Connecticut, who make a stop there, who always, walk through the information center and say, hey, what is there to do around here? What are the things that we can see that are around here? So that was the first step. Second step, working and Representative Amy Berger-Javala will remember this as well. A year or so ago, Richfield opened up the very first Richfield Cultural District. right up and down Main Street. In fact, they've got these nice acorn-looking signs all up and down Main Street, and that's where we went for the opening at the Aldrich and then the other museums that are there, drawing people in to say, hey, there is a lot more here than just old-time Main Streets. Third, supporting things like Lou Wallace has done with CT Humanities. The voting of all the money for CT Humanities is probably one of the easiest votes I think any of us has ever taken up in the state capitol, which was to make sure that a lot of the COVID and other monies that we had would go to something that would pay dividends, like supporting the arts, like supporting history, like supporting our museums, getting people a reason to come, because many of these institutions have been left to rack and ruin because they just can't find the funding. So with the help of Lou and others with CT Humanities, with the grants, I know the Danbury Museum this year, I think, got around $19,000 worth of grants. New Fairfield, which I presently represent, Ridgefield, New Fairfield, and Danbury. New Fairfield, the Historic Society, when they came up to me a year ago and said, is there a way we could find a couple $1,000s to stay afloat? Well, we got them $5,000. When New Fairfield's, their other historic group with Preserve New Fairfield, we got them $5,700. And then when you talk about stuff, that Amy Berger-Zavala touched on, supporting and getting money for the theater barn. They're expanding in Ridgefield with the theater barn. Sadly, I missed the ground opening, but we know that we're there for them. And lastly, when you talk about how do we support the arts, this year I was able to get $650,000 for Richter Arts to help them with ADA compliance issues, so that we can get more people to be able to actually come and enjoy the arts and get them out of their houses. Because what COVID has shown us is people really need to get outside more in a healthy environment. So it's more about supporting, not only in advertising and saying we support, it's actually finding the funding, making sure the funding is actually getting where it needs to go, and make sure that in the end, the funding that we are doing is an investment to keep these viable and these vital resources open for all to enjoy in the future.
Thank you. You seamlessly answered both questions, so I will not pepper you with the second one, and instead we'll turn it over to Bob. So you surely know the drill at this point, but what is it about Connecticut that makes our culture so special, and what is unique about the cultural community in the state?
First, thank you all for this opportunity. Humans are in our veins and in our brains. Go back to Stone Age men and women, and they're painting on cave walls, and they're expressing themselves. And that's something that never goes away. It needs to be nurtured as much as possible. As I sit here in my home, behind me one block is the Scott Fenton Museum, for which I actually worked with then Senator Dave Cappiello for some capital money. Right next to the house is the Marian Anderson studio. I knew her personally, and working with Lou Wallace, we got state money to have that moved from her farm to a site, and it's just a wonderful thing to have. If I went out one block to my right, I'd be hitting the site of the death of General Worcester, who is very well known for the Battle of Ridgefield. He died of wounding from the Battle of Ridgefield back in April of 1777. And similarly, the Comte de Rochambeau camped out here as he was traveling from Newport to upstate New York to meet General Washington. I'm a real big history buff, and having these kind of opportunities is great. Then working with Senator Christopher Dodd and Jim Malone, we got money for the Danbury Railroad Museum. I think $1.5 million at the time. So I've certainly been supportive, not only with talk but with upfront money. It all kind of come together. Like Ken, I helped with the bond authorization for Richter Arts. I applaud the national one of the last states to actually get a national park was Connecticut. And of course, that was Weir Farm, which celebrates the Connecticut Impressionists down Amy's Way. And then I in my pile of mail to read today, I've got the brochure of the events coming up at the Wadsworth Athenaeum. I follow that as I keep an eye on that at Yale's museum. We've got nothing big like MoMA or the Met in New York or even the Historical District in Boston, but we have a lot of mostly small places to visit, to spend some time in, to learn both history, which is my personal interest, and the other arts. So I walk into the Legislative Office building, and everywhere I turn, there was art that was part of the original construction. The big eagle in the atrium, the incredible woodworking on some of the doors, requiring art to be included in any construction by the state, I think is an important thing to advocate. And then, as Farley mentioned, the cultural groups celebrating their own history. I'm Irish and Italian mostly, and I've been active with the Ancient Order of Hibernians. Those kind of, and there we're dealing with a lot of performance art. There's just so much, and I think what we can do are two things. We need to provide the money directly to the various art institutions, and we try to do that. Everyone can always use more, but we also, as Ken pointed out, need to boost the tourism advertising to get people from out of state and even in state who are doing staycations to stop in Connecticut and check out some of these sites. So I think those are two very big opportunities. And then I would just ask you all, and any art related institution, keep us informed. Amy's absolutely right. Invite us to stuff. That certainly sticks in my mind. And each of us have websites and Facebook pages that we could help advertise. Yes, I can put up on my Facebook page, the farmers market here in Danbury, but I can also put up events and other art-related opportunities, so we can be a big help, I think, in getting the word out, because it's about communicating to people inside and outside of the state of Connecticut what is available and freely available and easily available. So those are the challenges I think you and we need to meet together. But that's kind of my take on what is going on and what should be going on.
Thank you very much. Brooke, who I think is still with, oh, sorry, not Brooke, Phoebe. Who is still, good. I have it set up so it's only when someone talks, then they appear. Well, Phoebe, thank you for joining us. And you've heard me ask this question many times, but why do you think arts and culture are important in Connecticut, and what is unique about the state?
All right. Is your name Cybele?
Oh, it's really difficult. It's Cybele.
Cybele. It's so pretty.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I mean it. And thanks for telling me about the Aldrich. I've never been there, but it's certainly now on my list.
Come and visit.
I will. So the arts are so important to me because I consider myself an artist. I'm not a paid artist, but I do appreciate art every single day in my own life. And to second what Bob said, in every human being, art is in our blood and our veins. And we need it. We need it to survive. We need to cling to in those hard times. To second, I think it was Rachel about the pandemic. She's still on here. We need these things. So in my own family, I play the guitar and the piano. I'm a visual artist and I paint as an outlet. I'm a poet and I write and I journal. And I bring all these things into our family by taking the family to different places all around me, like the Brookfield Theater in my district of the 107th, Newtown Hall. Edmond Town Hall offers lots of events for the arts, live music, concerts, theater performances. In our state, we have the Bushnell, the Palace. Connecticut is rich in the arts. My son also takes Irish dance lessons at Ashurst Academy of Irish Dance. And also to second Bob, talking about arts and culture. It's arts is part of every culture. And this dance has helped my son a lot to explore his Irish roots through the arts. What else? The second part of your question was about.
It's about funding for the arts. What do you hope to be able to do to be able to access funding for the cultural community within the state?
Well, I think we could start talking about like extra programs that are just about the arts. When I was in high school, there was a gifted and talented arts program that I was in, and I was in it for a couple of years, and then the funding got cut. So I think we could advocate for those things to return. We could also advocate for more teachers, more art and music teachers and theater teachers to be, joining our schools. So many times, like, there isn't a theater teacher. It's the math teacher who moonlights as, the theater person after school. Wouldn't it be great if we actually had these positions open for people to fill? And it was mandatory to have more art teachers and more music teachers and this and that. And just to expound upon that a little bit more, I think this ties in deeply with the current, mental health conversation on everyone's mind and the mental health crisis that's going on in schools these days with kids. And I think that having more art teachers in school, and when I say that, I mean all of the art teachers, theater, music, visual. I think that this will help students to be able to like grow their creativity and have the arts to fall back on in tough times and as an outlet. So I think that increasing funding for this at the public school level would be critical for today's youth. And help them as they grow to always have this to hold on to. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Lisa, has everyone had a chance to?
I believe so, but I'm going to ask if there is a candidate that is online with us that has not had a chance to address that question. If you could just make yourself known, but from what I can tell, Cybele, I think we got everyone.
Great. Well, Lisa, I'm going to turn it back over to you for the next portion.
Well, thank you so much, Cybele, for posing those questions. And thank you, each of the candidates that have taken the time to so thoughtfully address these questions. Really appreciate your viewpoints and thoughts. And one of the things that I know as we sort of, segue into a Q&A with our audience, just to give them a chance to engage in this conversation. But before that, I do want to point out, I know it's written in the agenda that was already shared with you, but for the purposes of the recording, I just want to read some statistics. It's a little dry, but I don't know if a lot of people are aware of the contributions that the arts really does have. So just bear with me for a moment. The arts and creativity have a proven track record of economic benefit to our state. The National Endowment for the Arts Office of Research and Analysis and the Bureau of Economic Analysis report that in 2020, arts and cultural production in Connecticut added $8.9 billion to our economy and accounted for 3.2% of our gross state product. while the arts and cultural industries employed 49,159 workers with wages and benefits totaling more than $5.1 billion. Just for the record, I just think, it's a staggering amount. I don't think there's anybody here that's engaged in this conversation. I don't think it's a big shocker. But what is still, I guess, interesting to me, and I think a lot of our advocates that I work with, is that given the value that the arts bring, historically, we are still the first to be ignored when state budgets come around. So I don't think we can overemphasize that point. So we just hope that all the candidates, as supportive as you are for the arts, should you be elected, that you give that some real consideration when you're faced with some tough choices in having to balance that budget. The arts, as you've all yourself pointed out, needs a slice of that budget, and more than a slice. And the other note that I'd like to make is, yes, through Connecticut Humanities, and most particularly the Cultural Fund for Arts and Culture, has been a tremendous help with that federal dollars, the ARPA dollars. We were most definitely a benefit. We had the benefit of that as well. But those dollars are not going to continue. We've got one more year, but as the 2023 budget, conversation begins, that money is not going to be there. So it really is a very hard conversation, but needed conversation that we have to have with all of you. So that's my final remarks. And I just, with that and with everything that has been said, I would like to open it up for comment or question from some of the other participants that are with us tonight. So if there's anyone that cares to ask a candidate a question, now is the time that you can do that. So this is the time when we usually plant questions with our audience. We did not do that today. I can very easily talk to you myself one-on-one. I have a million, not so much questions, but food for thought, should you be elected, on ways that we might be able to deepen our partnership and collaboration with you. As the regional arts organizations, there's some things that were said today that I think Bob brought up, and maybe some others, about staying in communication with them. As a regional arts organization for the greater Danbury area, I have we have an interest in maybe helping to facilitate that. Having good contact information with all of our elected officials, I think, is really, really key. That's something that we might be able to facilitate. And not for nothing, but, rising tide. So if we can, it might be also a service for our region, for all of the elected officials as well, to be able to rely on the Cultural Alliance for, communication and coordination and bringing people together, much like this forum today. Mark, you see your hand is up.
Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Mark Aldrich, no relation to the Aldrich, but friendly. I'm the creator of an illustrated book series called Shards of Time, which covers the exploits of a group of cartoon animal women preservationists who go around saving buildings. Right now, I'm applying for grants.
Neurologists.
Sorry about that. We're applying for grants, and we've just recently partnered with the Cultural Alliance. We just signed a contract for fiscal sponsorship. So I'm really excited about working with Lisa on that. And what we're doing Bob mentioned to invite you to things that are coming up. We're working on putting the individual books on as theater pieces. So we're applying for grants to cover the costs of having older women mentor younger women in the theater arts to get together, a cast and musicians to put on productions. We've also partnered with a production company, Wolflinks Productions, run by Ken Lundquist, who's in New Britain and has done a lot of work there, a lot of theater work there, and a lot of teaching. So our next presentation, we're going around to libraries. We've been to the Ridgefield Library. We have a presentation there of a 38-minute presentation of scenes from the books, narrated by the group's leader, who's Alopia de Castellon. We have a Spanish actress doing that voice. That's scheduled. The next presentation that we're scheduling is December 13th at the Danbury Library. So all you Danburyites and people who are in the vicinity, get in touch with the Danbury Library and see what their upcoming events are. They'll be showing that. I'm excited about the idea of local politicians being involved in this, because you can help us spread the word. What we'd like to do with Shards of Time is develop theater productions here in the state and export them eventually, once they're refined and put together in an aesthetic way, is to export them to the country of each character's origin. So it's an exciting thing that we're doing and we're looking forward to. And I really do appreciate the support of politicians on this.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Question, thought, comment?
Yeah, this is Lou. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the candidates for completing the survey, for taking the time this afternoon to share your thoughts with us, and especially those as well who were able to attend our event this morning. It's interesting, or let me put it this way. And in the legislature, there is an arts caucus, and it certainly would be beneficial to our region if members of the legislature in our region were part of that caucus. I certainly understand it wouldn't make sense for every legislator to be a part of the caucus, and perhaps that's something post-election the delegation can discuss as to who would be serving on that caucus, and ensuring that our regional interests are represented as well, of course, as a statewide interest for the arts. So I'll just put that out there as perhaps a thought.
Good point, Lou.
Could I just say something to that?
Sure, go right ahead, Amy.
So that caucus is actually a bipartisan caucus, and reminders do go out to the assembly at large. But that's another way that you could definitely, once everybody is back into their next terms, to be able to reach out and encourage your own legislators to join, I think is a great thing, because, we do, again, that whole idea of drinking from a fire hose. There's so much that comes at us. And I think also, particularly with new legislators, you don't even know what the caucus procedure is. So to put on their radar that is the case is probably something that you might want to put on your calendar for January. Reach out to whoever your legislators are and remind them to get involved. With that said, I don't have numbers, but when we had we had a meeting in Hartford together, it was like a forum, and it was a good long day, and there were a lot of us there. And that's hard data, a lot. So, and the participation came from a bipartisan perspective, for sure, and also a lot of organizations from throughout the state were there. There weren't quite as many from down our way. So that's also something that I would encourage you guys to be involved in from that side, so that your faces are showing up at these events as well, because I think it's important for people from the other parts of the state to see what we're doing down here, and how really vigorous the arts are down here. So
can I just comment on that? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish. And then comment. Well, I just want, for number one, I'm not sure, but Senator Kushner, aren't you a member of that caucus? That's an open question for you. But before you answer that, it's still not, we need more. And could we not use this forum and others, but this is an opportunity to let you all, as representatives of our region, should you get elected, to please be mindful to try that being on that caucus is important. I'm sure we can reach back out and remind you that it's important, but I think there is a statement, and I can't imagine any arts advocate that would not agree to this, that, just know that being on that caucus is important. And so if there's an opportunity to join it, we would certainly appreciate you looking into that. And then thirdly, I would by way of information, our region that we service is very diverse. Richfield probably it's very rich in the number of resources that are here, but Richfield probably has the lion's share, which I know is a part of who you represent. And when I say lion's share, I mean mostly the organizations that are well established. They probably have staff, and maybe in a better position than the majority of or the rest of our area. So that's something to keep in mind too. There are a lot, that's hard data for me too, a lot of organizations in the greater Danbury footprint, the 10-town area, that have small but very well established volunteer-based organizations. The reality is they're not going to have the resources to send people to Hartford to advocate for the arts. But I think it's a mistake to say that there are not advocates here in this community or in this region. So I think to look at that as an indicator, and I know that legislative leaders are hit with a lot of, not pressure, but interest. To say that, if you're not seeing a big contingency from this part of the state, I think is a misnomer, only because of the representation of art and cultural organizations here. And that is also an indication of how little funding comes here. So I can go on and on and on. Our larger organizations, they get taken care of, but even they, I would submit, are not funded as much as they need to be funded. So just some things, some nuances to consider. And I do know that legislative leaders, are going to first and foremost make sure that their districts are taken care of, as you should. But just to give you some context, in a broader context in terms of where we serve.
If I could make a quick statement there. There was something that my first year up in the House, the pre-COVID years, believe it or not, if we can think that far back, I was given the unlucky task of being I don't know how this worked. I wasn't the youngest legislator in the Danbury delegation, but I was the newest member of the Danbury delegation. And I was tasked with this job of putting together this thing called Danbury Day. With Danbury Day, it's a way of being, and other towns and cities have done this. This is a way that we also can reach out and show the rest of the state the needs and desires we have. And what we had done for that particular Danbury Day was we featured Marian Anderson, and we celebrated the 80th anniversary of her singing at the Lincoln Memorial. Standing up to racism, but also showing her tie to Danbury. And what we did was we partnered with the Danbury Museum, who came up and brought a lot of the artifacts and a lot of the things that people very rarely see. And at that time, we were also talking with Paul Steinmetz was there as well from Western Connecticut State University. And they were talking about their arts program and how they want to take their art center and turn it into the Marian Anderson Center, I guess it was called. I'm not sure what the final name was going to be. But these were ways that I hope that once we do emerge like a butterfly from the cocoon of COVID, that we can bring these things forward to show the rest of our colleagues the importance of our various areas and show them the needs. So many people did not realize, gee, Marian Anderson lived in Connecticut. Gee, Marian Anderson did all these wonderful things. They had no idea until we did that. Now, I will say the event wasn't as well tended towards the end as it could have been, because Bob and I and others who were in the legislature had been up for 24 hours straight arguing for the $15 minimum wage, and came to when Danbury Day finally started, we were still wearing the clothes from the night before, probably needing a shower and combing our hair at that point. But these are tools that we can use, and like others have said earlier, lobbyists get a bad name. Well, they do and they don't. They get a bad name when they do bad things. But lobbyists are the tool that we use as legislators to be able to understand what's going on and do the research and get us the information, because, as Representative Amy Berger-Javallo said, it's like drinking out of a fire hose when you get there. You go from 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds, which the only vehicle I know that can do that is a Shelby Cobra. But we wind up having to go that quick. So we rely on you, and we will be and have been, I believe, sadly, COVID got in the way. Will be an advocate for the arts, but I think on a good way, COVID did show, like I said earlier, the needs for the arts, the desire for rebuilding our communities on the backs of the arts, and by getting us the funding from the government that says, you know what, we really should focus on the arts, on recreation, on other things that have been neglected for so long, because we're seeing that our infrastructure has just been suffering. So hopefully next session, maybe if I'm blessed to still be there, Farley, this will be your job to run Danbury Day, since you will now be the newest and the youngest, I think, of the delegation. And we can carry on what has been started so far.
Thank you, Ken. I see Joanne, and then you, Senator Kushner.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne Hudson from Ridgefield Independent Film Festival. And I have been thinking about, I'm curious, when you were talking about, some of the representatives were talking about linking the arts with tourism, which I think is a really good idea, because I feel like we're kind of an arts corridor here that goes from, I don't know, you can even, from New York City up through maybe Westchester. Katona has a great gallery scene, and coming through Ridgefield, then you've got theater, the film festival, museums, dance, up through Litchfield, right up to the Berkshires, where they have a vibrant community as well. And I'm just wondering, is there any initiatives to like regionally link, should we be in a AAA driving tour of, as an arts corridor? Just if any of the representatives have any ideas, like how do you plan to link tourism with the arts? That would be my question.
It's a question for anyone or current?
For any of, for any of the representatives.
Maybe
anyone that wants to jump in.
I could jump in, or Julie, if you're there, my hand raising is not working. So go ahead, Julie.
I put my hand down because I thought I was next, so I apologize. But I do think that linking it to tourism is important, because it does sort of underscore the value beyond the, sort of feeding our souls. It also represents an economic driver. I know that was really well established in Ridgefield. And I think Rudy Marconi has been a great asset for Ridgefield, driving that message about how bringing people to a community for art and culture also helps the businesses in that community. So I think that's a really important message. And I don't think we've been as strong on that as we can be. So going forward, I think we ought to examine that and see what can we do to regionalize that. And much the way the Cultural Alliance brings communities together, we need to also think of ourselves beyond our district lines in the broader sense, connecting different state districts right here in this area. I really appreciate what Lisa said about the involvement of representatives, myself and others, in promoting the arts in this area, because I know I can always go to Lisa, she can always come to me with ideas that we need to move agendas in the legislature, and that's something I'm really open to. I think it might be wise after the election and before the session, if we can, to have some kind of a brainstorming session with the elected officials so that we're thinking about ways to maximize issues like you raised, Joanne, about advocating for tourism. I know some of the things that I've been really interested in, particularly focused on Danbury, is that we have a lot of culture that is underappreciated in our community. Yet every time I go to an event, whether it's in the Indian community, the Ecuadorian community, the Irish community, everyone has dance. And they have traditional dance, and they have costumes, and it's gorgeous. And it really is something that we have not pulled together yet. I have been talking to Bobby Bria at Musicals at Richter about how do we do that? And I think he's very interested next summer in pulling together something like that through, the Richter House to really showcase what is already here, and also to integrate the diverse immigrant communities that we have here into the arts and cultural community. And I think that so much could be done to move that agenda. And so I'm excited because I'm involved both in the arts, but I'm also involved in these communities and want to see us sort of bring it all together. One other thought I have real quickly is really trying to get what's going on at WestCon better known in the community at large, because I went to a musical performance there. I had never been there before. And I've been here 30 years in this community, and I was blown away at the professionalism, at the facility itself, the quality of the actors and the direction. And I feel like that's something that not everybody in Danbury knows about. It's very accessible because it's really doesn't cost anything to, very little to go to these things. So maybe through the Cultural Alliance, we could also work on sort of opening up that world as well. So
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that, Julie. Probably better than many. We've had an interest to do that for a very, very long time. I mean, and Bob said it in the chat as well. Hats off to a rich institution like WestCon and their School of Visual and Performing Arts school, which is just award-winning. I mean, they've won awards right in our own backyard that resources throughout our region are using. And yet, I think we can do much more to elevate not only the awareness, but collaborative ideas so that we can all maybe get the resources and make the connections and all of that, together. And I think there's a way to do it. It'd be hard work, but that's the kind of work that I want to be in. So
that sounds great, Lisa, and I look forward to discussing that more with you and how I might be able to connect some of the dots here at WestCon to help make some of those great ideas happen.
Okay, who's that speaking? Is that
Julie? Sorry,
Julie. Yeah,
Julie.
I thought it was you, Julie. I saw you.
I'm not on video, but
yes, that's okay, and I'm glad that you were able to join us. Bob, then Representative Amy, and then Lucy following Amy.
Thank you, Lisa. I need to reiterate when I'm talking about using tourism and tourism money to celebrate and to inform, that I'm not necessarily talking just about, oh yeah, we can get some people from New York to come and visit. One of the more fun things my family used to do decades ago when I was very small my parents would pile us all in the car on a Sunday afternoon and we'd drive out and just explore another chunk of Connecticut. And we'd often come across some of the smaller museums, some of the events that were going on and participated. So I think we need also to push kind of for not just intrastate, but interstate, but also interstate tourism to push, to inform. If there were a single place we could go to, and I think the tourism department's own website, to have a list of everything that's available going on with events, and then also have a comprehensive list of museums and other kinds of similar sites, that would go a long way into helping. And again, it's something we can put on our individual websites and get the word out for that. So there's a real partnership here. And absolutely, I mean, I had lunch with Paul Steinmetz and the new president of Western, and I talked at some length about the need for the university to get out into the community more. And the simplest way is promoting the events and the exhibitions that the arts department provides. Western is the place to go as a student if you want to be an arts teacher in the state of Connecticut, whether it's the plastic arts or the performing arts. And I don't think enough of my constituents get that. And so part of our marketing and joint marketing needs to be to show people there's theater, there's bands, there's music, there's choral groups, there's exhibitions of sculpture and painting. So the state needs to step in and do more of that in promoting its own institution that is attracting and part of the art scene here in Western Connecticut.
Thank you, Bob. Amy?
So I'm going to be really brief because I know that we want to start wrapping up. But just to clarify, when I was talking about the caucus meeting that happened in Hartford, I was surprised to find out that most of the organizations in Ridgefield didn't even know about it. They weren't even notified that this was happening up in that area. And I find that in all areas of policy, a lot of things that happen up there sort of are very Hartford or even New Haven centric. And so this region is left out. So when I'm talking about making sure you guys are there, that's part of our responsibility as members of that caucus to make sure that you are aware of when these kinds of things are going on. So that was part one of the clarification. The other piece is, so coming out of that caucus, that caucus forum, there were the three priorities that were named. Two of them are pretty related because it has to do with funding, and one is about sustainable funding and the other was about equitable funding. And as a result of those breakout groups that we were all put into to discuss these things, so it was legislators along with these different organizations, that's when we talked really deeply about an effective tourism brand for Connecticut. And making Connecticut a tourism destination became a really big topic among the breakout groups. And the conversations were about interstate and interstate patronage of the attraction. So getting us all to cross the state together, but then bringing other people in. And the discussion only began about how stakeholders can collaborate on messaging and understanding the identity of Connecticut as a tourism destination and what the brand would look like and the marketing and all of that. So it is just the beginning of that conversation. So this is definitely a good time to get this region on board with having really an active voice in there. And that's something that I know that Julie and I would imagine probably, Bob, you're probably a member of that caucus too, I assume. Ken, I think you are. Getting you guys linked to that, I think, is critical because this really is sort of in a semi-bubble-like ignored region of the state on so many levels, and we have so much to offer. So it would be great to connect you guys.
I appreciate that, Amy. And just so, just to reiterate and clarify, that is also one of the things that the Cultural Alliance is focused on. So one of the things that we hope to have you all walk away with is, you know, to think of us and use us more as a connector and a resource to be able to get this information out. So as your regional arts service organization, we're already connected to places like the Connecticut Arts Alliance, which is a statewide advocacy organization. I am actually very much aware of when those caucus meetings happen. I'm most times participating in strategy sessions with my colleagues around the state before and after those caucus meetings happen. One of the things that though is, you know, just a little lopsided on this side of things is that compared to my colleagues, you know, there's not enough representation in that room of the caucus. So, you know, it doesn't have the same weight to it, if you know what I'm saying. So, and by the way, notice it, just so you're aware, our constituency is notified of these opportunities one way or another, either directly through Connecticut Arts Alliance or us as their regional arts organization. It's one of the things that we do is we are a provider of vital resources and information about these opportunities. So what that tells me is there's things that we need to do for communication. Maybe we can coordinate more with our elected leaders to be able to help amplify these same messages and to really drive home the point and really get it in front of our shared constituency. Because as a nonprofit, you know, your district, you know, the arts and culture in your district, they are our members. And so we're here to service them in ways like this and others. So I just want to emphasize that point too, while I have the opportunity in this forum to you know, just clarify and make you aware if you're not already aware. Lucy, and we will end with Lucy. And Lucy, before you begin, I just want to thank, you know, Lucy, you will have the final word, but before then, thank all of you for taking out time today. I know that it's busy campaign season, but we really appreciate you being here. And it won't be the last time that we invite you. I really like your idea, Julie, of bringing post-election. We'll bring you know, all of our elected officials back again together. And yeah, let's move this forward. Lucy.
Okay, hi, I'm Lucy Gallagher. I found out actually about this call today from the breakfast at the Danbury Mall. I was standing at the table for Art in Common, which is a new nonprofit in Ridgefield that I was helping to promote. But I just wanted to mention, I'm a master's student at WestCon, and we have a large group of students here who have a lot of passion and excitement just about art in general. And I just think it's important to connect with us, especially because we are young and we are the generation that's going to directly be benefiting from the work that you're doing, all the hard work. And so I just wanted to mention that. Come to us, talk to us. We're excited and we want to get involved because this is our future just as much as it is everyone else. But yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end this conversation. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. And Louise, I would be delighted. I know that was a private question of an invitation to come and speak, but just I'm going to send you my contact information. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.